A day with living paintings. The sun shone brightly on the marble facade of the city's most renowned art museum. Visitors wandered through spacious halls, their footsteps echoing on the polished floors. Each hall was dedicated to a particular style or period, ranging from Renaissance masterpieces to contemporary abstracts. Oliver, a young boy with a wild mop of curly hair, trailed behind his parents. He'd been to the museum multiple times, having grown up in the city, but never tired of the place. It was his favorite spot to let his imagination run wild. As the family walked through the Hall of Impressionist paintings, Oliver's attention was caught by a piece he hadn't noticed before. It depicted a serene park scene with people enjoying a sunny day. But what made it stand out was how the figures seemed to move ever so slightly, almost as if they were breathing. Curious, Oliver approached the painting and touched the canvas with his fingertips. There was a soft glow when he made contact, and he found himself standing inside the painting. He looked around in wonder. The grass was soft beneath his feet, the sun warm on his face, and he could hear the faint sound of laughter from the painted figures around him. Suddenly, a painted dog ran past him, chasing a ball thrown by a painted child. It stopped when it reached Oliver, sniffing him curiously before wagging its tail and running off. A woman in a long flowing dress approached him, her painted features smiling. "You're new here, aren't you?" she asked. Oliver nodded, too astonished to speak. "Well, welcome," she said. "We don't get many visitors from the other side. My name's Clara. I used to be just a painting, but then we all came to life one day. It's been like this ever since." Oliver explored the painted world, chatting with. There was the baker who described the delicious scent of bread that never quite finished baking, the children who played endless games, and the old man who sat by the pond, recounting tales from when they became alive. Hours seemed like minutes, and Oliver soon realized he needed to return. Clara guided him to the edge of the painting. "Just touch the frame," she advised. As Oliver stepped out, he found himself back in the museum. The painting, once vibrant and alive, was now static once more. His parents, noticing his absence, rushed over. "Where were you?" his mother exclaimed. Oliver, still processing his adventure, smiled and pointed at the painting. "In there," he whispered. They laughed, thinking he was playing a game, and the family moved on. But as they left, Oliver took one last look at the painting. For a split second, he thought he saw Clara waving goodbye. From that day on, Oliver saw art in a new light, not just as paintings on a wall, but as windows to magical worlds waiting to be explored. Every visit to the museum became a potential adventure, and he cherished each one, always with the hope of stepping into another painting and meeting more extraordinary characters. The clock that struck 13. A tall grandfather clock stood in the corner of a quiet antique shop. It was made of dark mahogany wood, and its face was a slightly faded shade of white, with elegant black numerals. Its pendulum swung lazily, and the hands of the clock moved in perfect harmony. Few paid attention to it, considering its age and the many newer items surrounding it. One afternoon, a woman named Sarah wandered into the shop, looking for something unique to add to her home. As she moved around, her eyes were drawn to the grandfather clock. There was an odd allure about it. The shop owner noticed her interest and approached. "That's a special piece," he remarked. "It's said to have an interesting quirk." Sarah looked at him curiously. "What quirk?" He leaned in closer, dropping his voice to a whisper. "Legend has it that every full moon, the clock strikes 13 times at midnight." Sarah laughed. 13 times? That's just a tale to sell the clock. The shopkeeper shrugged. "Perhaps. But it has been returned to this shop 3 times by different owners who claim they've heard it." Amused and intrigued, Sarah decided to buy the clock. She had the perfect spot for it in her living room. Besides, she loved stories, which would be a great conversation starter. After setting it up that evening, she admired the clock's grandeur. It added a touch of elegance to her room. The first few nights, she didn't think much about the legend. But as the full moon approached, her curiosity grew. On the night of the full moon, Sarah decided to stay up and listen. She settled on a couch nearby, a cup of warm tea in her hand. Hours passed, and the room was filled only with the clock's rhythmic ticking. As the hands approached midnight, she held her breath. The clock began to chime. She counted each chime, her heart beating faster with each one. 12 chimes echoed through her living room, and then, to her astonishment, a 13th chime resonated, lingering in the air longer than the others. Stunned, Sarah set down her cup. The legend was true. But instead of fear, she felt a thrill. There was something magical about owning a clock that defied logic. The next morning, filled with excitement, she called her friend Anna. "You won't believe what happened last night," Sarah exclaimed, recounting the events. Anna, a lover of mysteries, was equally intrigued. "What if it's a sign or a message from the past?" she mused. Together, they researched the clock's history. It had been crafted by a renowned clockmaker whose beloved wife passed away at midnight under a full moon. Heartbroken, he built the clock in her memory, adding the 13th chime to signify the extra moment he wished he had with her. The tale moved Sarah. Every full moon, she'd sit by the clock, listening to its 13 chimes, reminded of the fleeting nature of time and the importance of cherishing every moment. The clock became not just a piece of furniture, but a symbol of love, longing, and the mysteries of time. And each time it struck 13, Sarah was reminded of the clockmaker's love and the beautiful imperfections that make life so unique.